This episode of Quiltmaker's Lessons in Creativity is brought to you by Northcott, cottons that feel like silk, and FOF, perfection starts here. Hi, welcome to Quiltmaker's Lessons in Creativity. This is series number 4, the very first episode. I am Jenny K. Parks. If you want to know more about me, you can check out my website, jennykquilts.com, and we're going to dive right in. The quilt that's our inspiration for this series is Star-Crossed Paths. You can get it in the Quiltmaker September-October 2016 edition, and I think it's just lovely. So much potential for creativity. You guys are going to love the whole series. Oh, I came up with some great stuff, very exciting. But first I'm going to show you how to do a couple of the things on these different blocks. This first block, the quilt behind me is made of 2 different blocks. This first block that we're going to do is the Y block. And you can see, pretty simple, simple block here. And then you put it together. Here's the next one. And this is our Z block. I love the fabrics on here. And we're going to talk throughout this a lot about using directional fabrics, how to deal with stripes and things that are going in particular directions, because they're coming out a lot more. They're a lot more popular. So we're going to touch on how to make those work in your favor, make them all fly in the proper direction. So I'm going to show you 2 things today, 2 parts here. I'm going to show you how to do these half-square triangles. We're going to make half-square triangles, and then we're going to use a stitch and flip method to make flying geese. Now you can see here we have little flying geese blocks, and they're little. They're very cute. But we can't do them, they're not the same on both sides. They're 2 different parts, so we have to use a stitch and flip technique, which is pretty good. It's very clever, and I'll show that to you too. First, half-square triangles. All right, we're going to take our 2 squares that we're going to do the half-square triangles out of. And then we're going to flip one over, and these are going to go right on top of each other, of course, right sides together. Now, we're going to draw a line on the back of this. Let me show you. Some directions will say to stack them up on top. I like to draw my line first and then stack them. And I have a really good trick. This tool I love for doing these. And I'm going to draw a line here and there on either side of this seam guide. Now, I used to draw a line straight through the middle, but I found with these guides I got much more accurate, more consistent results. So I'm converted. I just love them. All right, I'm going to take a pencil. You can use any kind of marker that you want to. And I'll draw the lines on the lighter fabric. I could draw it on the darker red fabric, but why? I'm going to draw it on the lighter fabric so you can see it better. All right, so I'm holding this nice and steady. I'm just going to draw a line. I'm making it nice and dark so you can be sure to see it. Hold everything very still. Come over here to the other side. All right, and there you can see our line. Beautiful. Okay, now I'm going to put them together, right sides together like that, and then we're going to come over here and sew. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to sew right along the lines that I drew. I find this is easier to sew on the line because my eye is used to traveling down that line. It's used to tracking that. Whereas if I draw a line in the middle, I have to follow the edge of my foot, and that you can do it. It just takes a little bit of mental adapting for me, and sometimes that's all I can do in a day. So let me get started here. I'm just going to go down this line. Nice and straight. If you were doing several at once, I'd just load up the next one here and keep going, then clip them apart and go on to the next step. But you can certainly chain piece it. And I'm a big fan of chain piecing. The more you can do at the same time, the same thing over and over, the better your results are going to be. All right, just turn it around, and I'm going to go down the other side. And I think this is a really clever way. I've seen photos of folks who they have like a whole stack of the parts of the half square triangles cut apart, like two different stacks, and you've got those bias edges to contend with. I'm thinking, oh no, honey, no, that's just crazy. Do it this way. You're going to be happier with it. All right. So let's come here. And now I'm going to cut it apart. You can see my bright orange line. And I'm going to line up my ruler. And if I nailed it, I can go from this top corner down to the bottom corner, and on my 1/4 inch mark on my ruler is lined up with my thread, my stitching line. I got it. All right, cut that apart. And now we're going to press, and we're just going to press to the dark. I like to warm it up a little bit. I think you're more persuasive. If you've already heated it up a little bit, it's going to be more inclined to go the direction you want it to go. There we are. Beautiful. So there you go. And you've got half square triangles. You're going to snip off the little dog ears and it'll be perfect. Okay, next thing is stitch and flip flying geese. All right, now here I'm going to show you two different ways, because remember on the design I showed you earlier, the block I showed you earlier, it has two different sides. So what we need to do is kind of set it up. See, so those are going to be the parts that make that. These are going to be the patches that you put together to make that. Now we have a problem. Which way, dealing with these stripy fellows, which way do I want them to go? And the choice is entirely yours. The more that stripes are going in different directions, the more movement, the more your eye jumps around and follows it. And that's fine. Whatever look you want, you go for it. I mean, we're talking about being creative here, right? So play around with it and figure it out. I decided that I want mine to kind of go in a particular direction, so I'm going to accommodate that. I want them to go in this direction. But if I stitch this on, if I just flip it over, right, and I stitch it on there like that, let me show you, I fold that up, that's not going to be the direction that I want. So I'm going to rotate it, and it takes a little bit of experimenting. Trial and error. Fold it up. Do I like it that way? Do I like it this way? Try one block. If you don't like it, don't worry about it. All right, so I'm going to put it on that way. We're going to start with this one right here. And I've kind of folded it a little bit, so I pressed it. I made sure I know which way I want it to go. But I'm going to draw another line, and because I already have this handy here on the table, I'm going to use this one again for a slightly different purpose. I'm not going to draw a line on either side, but I'm just going to use it to draw that line on one side. Right down through the middle, using one side of the seam guide. There we go. All right. I'm going to put it on my other patch. And when I start sewing, I'm going to sew along this line. When I start sewing, I'm not going to start at this corner, because the machine can sometimes get, you might have a machine that gets chompy and it might eat up that little bit. If I start here, I'm going to have better results. So I'm going to start at this center part when I stitch. Check it out, right? Anything that's going to give us a little better results, right? Okay. And again, I'm just going to follow right down that line. Look at that. The orange thread almost goes. It hardly ever goes. That's funny. Okay, so now I'm going to cut a 1/4 inch from that line that I stitched. So let me scoot that over a touch. I lay my ruler on there and I make sure my 1/4 inch line is on my stitching line, and I'm going to cut right next to it. And those are scrappies now. And bring it over here, and I'm going to press. And these are littler pieces, so I really do like to heat them up first to make sure they're going to go where you want them to go, because sometimes they're not very obedient. All right, next piece. And now we have this one that needs to go right there. Direction doesn't matter. Don't have to worry about that one for this. And I'm gonna, oh, you could do that with the ruler. I'm gonna do it with this one again. I forgot, it's right there, nice and handy. And what I'll do when I'm getting ready to piece these blocks is I will put a whole pile of them and I'll just sit down and I'll do all the lines. Instead of doing like step by step like we're doing here, I'll do all the lines and do like that. Because again, I think the more you can do the same step at the same time, the more consistent you're gonna be. The happier you're gonna be with the results. Okay, let's put this fella together. Nice and lined up. Again, I'm starting in that top corner, and I think that prevents anything from getting munched up or anything. There we go. These really come together quickly, and using this stitch and flip technique, you have a lot of different design options that you can make. You can certainly play around with it and put whatever you want there. Whoop, whoop. Oh, there we go. Got to be a little more determined. All right, and I'm going to press out, pressing away from the goose. This center part down here is called the goose, and the upper part is the sky. So I'm going to press towards the sky. And there we go. There we'd have it. And you can see too, if I was getting ready to do the next one, I just do it in the opposite direction, and those will fit together really nicely. So that's it for this one. We've covered how to make 2 different units for these blocks. Next time we're going to talk about fast flying geese instead of the stitch and flip method, and quarter square triangles. Ooh, we're up in our game, but I got some good tricks and they come together pretty quickly. So I hope you join me, and I'll see you there. This episode of Quiltmaker's Lessons in Creativity is brought to you by Northcott, cottons that feel like silk, and FOF, perfection starts here.